Hi, this is April,
And this is Lourdes.
and we're the Shrinking Violets.
And this is episode 31, Let It Snow, where we'll be talking about The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which is the newest Hunger Games movie. And today we have two special guests, but they'd like to be referred as two special bitches?
Two extra bitches.
Two extra bitches.
Yeah, same thing. Special extra.
Yes, so who are you guys?
Bitch one, I'm Casey. I've been on here before.
Yes.
I'm bitch 2. I'm Brittany. I've also been on here before, but only once.
Yeah. And we all went to watch the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes together, and we're going to talk about our thoughts, and April created some questions for us.
So many thoughts.
So many thoughts, yeah. So I'll ask the first one. And also, 3 of us have read the book.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Brittany has not read the book.
But she's going to, because it's one of our book of the months for next year for the Aficionado 4. So
Yeah. I'm excited to get her perspective as a non-book reader.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
I feel like it'll be different a little bit.
Yeah.
I was looking over the questions and I'm like, how prepared am I? How qualified am I to answer some of these?
It's okay.
Yeah, you'll be able to give us some.
I think you'll be speaking for a lot of people that watched the movie. So,
yeah, exactly.
But didn't read the book. Yeah.
Okay, so the first question is that the book's purpose is to see Koryo's journey into becoming the evil person we know in the Hunger Games. Do you think that Collins was effective in doing so, and how does that compare to how the movie did it?
What I thought was that Collins was effective in the book in showing us how mean he was in his thoughts, but in the movie not so much. And I feel like that was an important part into showing him how he becomes evil later. But I think we've talked about this before. In the movie and in the book, she didn't do a super great job in showing how he becomes a villain later.
Yeah, I also think that in the book, you obviously get his inner thoughts. So you start to see how, at least for me, how arrogant and kind of self-centered, he wants to do things for himself in the book. And in the movie, you kind of get some of it from the things that he says, but I think it gives him a little bit more maybe wanting to give him more sympathy. At least that's what I think. And it's funny because I was watching the book Theo kind of analysis of it, this booktuber, and she was, one of the questions she addresses is he too good looking for
I bring that up later.
For portraying somebody kind of being evil and whatnot. And I think that the way that she says it's pretty spot on, where it's I don't think that there's nothing wrong with somebody being attractive and being evil, right? Sometimes we, especially let's say Disney movies, right? So we depict them as being hideous and everything, but even if he looks the way he does, that's even more impactful sometimes as for the viewer, to try to make that separation. And I think that even within the book, Collins still kind of you're supposed to know that he's this kind of maybe
charming,
good looking, and then but he's still terrible person.
Yeah. See, I wrote a section on that. I said Snow is supposed to be handsome and charming, and I put villains don't have to seem villainous. And I think the best villains make you want to believe they're making sense / they're normal in some way.
Yeah.
And then they have the possibility of being good, but then they choose a different path for themselves. And so there is a string of logic that you follow that makes them a little more nuanced than one of those just monologue villains, that just is bad the entire time.
I hate monologue
Yeah.
villains.
Yeah, so I think these, like, being good looking and being charming in a way that, like, calls to people is way more interesting. I was going to ask how his attractiveness affects the impact of a character or a movie. So, like, for Tom, I know Brittany doesn't agree with how much we like how Tom Blythe looks. But I'm curious, if he wasn't as attractive, how effective would the movie be? Because I will say that I'm obsessed right now, as you guys know.
Yeah.
And I asked myself, and like my sister and I are heavily obsessed right now. And we're both kind of like, well, I don't know how much I would be. Obviously, I love the book and I love the story and I love all of that. But like, how into it would I be if it wasn't him? But I think his character is still done really well, that I'm interested either way.
Yeah.
But I think because his acting is so good and his face is so nice, that it makes it more impactful. Because if the acting was bad but he was still good looking, it wouldn't be good either.
Yeah.
So it's a whole package thing. I don't know.
I think it's a good combination of like just everything.
Wait, so
I mean, it kind of worked out.
So for people like Brittany who don't think he's attractive, like, how do you see this? How do you see it?
So, I mean, okay, so to multiple parts of things that you guys have brought up. For one, I am totally okay with a villain being attractive. I do think it highlights someone's willingness to forgive and overlook certain traits or behaviors just because they like the way that they look. But I also like it when an attractive person plays the villain part, because there's such an overplayed trope to, like, as soon as you see like one creepy looking dude, you're like, that's the villain. And when they don't do that, it kind of I think it makes it a little bit more interesting, because it plays on that human question of like, why did you instinctively trust him? Or why do you not? That being said, I wasn't attracted or not attracted to Tom Blythe. Like, I don't think he's ugly.
Different.
But I also am not like, ooh hoo hoo, like, I'm not about him. So I think for me personally, his looks did not play a part into how I perceived him. So to that extent, I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm obsessed with him because of the way he looks. That being said, the way they portrayed Snow in the movie, I was going to stay 1,000 miles away from this book when it first came out, because I was like, I don't need to sympathize with this like disgusting ass man. But I think they did a really good job of giving us his story without making me, at least personally, want to be like, oh no, poor boy, I understand now. Nah, he's still crazy. And they showed, maybe to not the same extent as the book from what I've heard from you guys, but they showed how it's possible he was and still slowly became.
Yeah. I was saying that I think both the book and the movie did different things better than the other. So I think the book was better because it gave obviously the inner monologue that you so you could see how judgmental or manipulative or possessive he was in his head, but how charming and smart he was to not let it show to other people. You don't get that in the book. He seems like, obviously he has some personality traits that you wouldn't love, but he does seem a little more sympathetic, or some like there's a normality to him in the movie. The movie was better, I think, at showing him making like the switch to mistrusting / manipulative, which I think is because of his acting mostly. Because I told you guys before, after I finished the book, I was like, I feel like the jump from just like a kind of troubled person to where we see him as Snow, like currently, like President Snow in the Hunger Games, was too far of a stretch, in my opinion. Like, there's a lot of time in between, I guess, where he gets worse and worse. Yeah. So the book was a little hard to grasp how we could jump so far. But I think in the movie, there is a little bit, like, I don't know, I could see more of it, because I said to you guys, I need the actor. Even just in his eyes, he could give so much. Like, if you just give crazy eyes, if you give crazy eyes, like, already I get it. I get where you become disturbed and can jump.
It was in his eyes, for sure.
Right. Yeah.
His eyes gave crazy the whole time.
Yeah. I was telling the girls I'm watching Billy the Kid, which is on Amazon Prime right now, and Tom Blythe is Billy. And his eyes say 1,000 words. It is insane. I highly, highly recommend it. It's so good. But it's funny because this is exactly what I said to you, and it's what he's giving as an actor, and it's amazing.
Nice.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so I think the book and the movie did different things well.
Yeah, I agree. The next one. How do you feel about Sejanus and the role he played for the story? Did the movie have the same effect?
Ooh.
I want Casey to go first.
Okay. Let's break it down. So, number 2. Okay, I was saying that Sejanus in the book was kind of... I was watching YouTubers, the Carlin brothers, talk about the movie, and they kind of agreed with what I was saying, where in the book Sejanus is just kind of a stick in the mud. Like, obviously what he stands for and what he like is upset about is completely valid. However, when you're like not rooting for Snow, but you're in his POV, right? So you're just kind of like going with his emotions and like what's happening, and then like Sejanus will just pull you back and it's like, come on, man, just let us live. Like, just let us go with the flow of the story. And he's just like, eh. But he is sympathetic in a way where you can see his heart a little bit and you get it. But in the movie, he's just much more aggressive and obvious about his motives and like his views. And it's like kind of not a surprise that he gets caught / Choreo like betrays him. Like he's just a lot more aggressive with his tactics and what he wants to get done in District 12 later on. And then he seemed more hopeful. Sorry. In the book, he seems more hopeful and like not naive, but like he really wants to make a new life for himself, I think, in the book. Whereas in the movie, it just seems like he had a plan to go there and like create this rebel cause or add to their cause.
Yeah, that was annoying.
Yeah, so also in the book, he was more easily influenced. So he seemed like he had an innocence to him. So he would be having these thoughts, and then he would be impulsive and want to do something, and then Choreo would be like, nah, bro, like, you can't do that. Like, think about this and think about that. Think about me. And Sejanus would be like, oh my God, you're right. Like, you're totally right. I'm so sorry. And he'd cry and stuff like that.
Yeah.
In the movie, he doesn't have that. So he just seems a little bit more like aware of himself, which changes, I think, the impact of his character in different ways. Yeah. Some people might like it more. I didn't. But...
I did not.
Yeah.
It's funny because I think that Sejanus came up more like how you're saying, more loud, more like bold in the movie. That I actually kind of like that because I feel like you get a more of a sense of balancing Choreo's kind of like, I don't know, I guess I would say more rational side, with Sejanus kind of be looking more of a irrational, like you're doing things that you're not really supposed to, which is weird because like you know that you want to side with Sejanus, but you're also kind of thinking at the same time like maybe how Choreo is thinking like you're like you're being kind of dumb of making these moves. And he does seem a little bit more innocent and like understandable in the book.
So you liked him being more
I liked him because I felt
it was
like
a
it
better
was
foil?
needed. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. To just drive the point that why Choreo might, be acting on his own.
Yeah. I would say that it makes it less impactful for Coriolanus is like when you're trying to see him be manipulative and stuff. If Sejanus is more obstinate and more loud and more obvious, it doesn't make it as impactful for you to see how manipulative he can be, Choreo. So it loosens that effect a little bit, I think, because we're looking at him and how he progresses. So it's a good foil, and it's like a good thing to have, like the face of the rebel cause, kind of, right? But I think it is kind of to the detriment of the storyline a little bit.
Yeah, because I mean, also I guess because in the book you get like a part where so when he dies, right, and he's kind of like thinking about like he's kind of saying like, oh, Sejanus was like a fool basically, like it had to be done, and he's thinking about it as like, okay, well, yeah, sure, like it was his fault though, and he keeps on rationalizing everything that he did, just blaming it all on Sejanus, and you don't really get that in the movie. And
Yeah.
he cries, sure, and he cries in the book as well, but it's more of a like, oh damn, like I may be caught now.
Yeah,
and in the movie it looks like he's crying because he lost a friend,
yeah,
which that's not really the case. I don't think it is.
I think there's a little bit of both, and I think it's interesting for Snow because his relationships are so messed up. Like his inner conflict, where we know he's manipulative and he's not a great person because he is mostly logical whenever he analyzes people, no matter who it is. Like his grandma, his Tigress, Sejanus, people that he's in school with. Like he's very harsh on them, which I get. But I don't think that takes away from him actually caring about these people. And he kind of doesn't want to. So he's constantly, in my mind, I think, his self-preservation instinct covers up any good that he has.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to untangle them. And then he like loves these people, but he loves power and manipulation more. And so I honestly think he did end up having some care for Sejanus, but even he wouldn't agree. Like he wouldn't like say that. So it's hard.
And in the book we did see him regret sending that Jabberjay. So yeah. He was like, oh shit, I probably shouldn't have sent it.
Yeah, I'm like, I know I saw the quote where he talks about it, and it's just, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like he regretted any of that, but
that's what I'm saying. Like he seems like he does for a second, and then he like almost gaslights himself or gaslights the people in his life that he's messed over. He just kind of like, he impulsively does something, which is stupid because he's not really impulsive either. He thinks over everything. Yeah. But he'll make a decision, and then when it either like backfires or goes further than he thought or whatever it is, he will rationalize it until it makes sense. So that he's never the bad guy in that scenario. But I don't think he does certain things with the intent of what they end up being sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, he's too complicated.
Yeah, he's very complicated.
All right, so the next one, what did you think about the actual like Hunger Games scene? So once they're in the arena, and how do they compare to the scenes in the movies about the trilogy?
So I was excited. I'm not excited to see obviously children dying, but I love the action part of the Hunger Games. Any Hunger Games movie, I'm excited to get to the action, which is so weird for me because with any movie, I'm like, action scenes. I hate blasting. I hate all the sound. I hate it all. But when it comes to Hunger Games movies, I don't know why I love it. But I think they did a good job. And compared to the other movies, I think it was pretty equal for me. Obviously, there were things that they skipped from the book that probably would have made it better. But just looking at it just from the movie, I was entertained. I liked it. And the book, actually, there were parts in the book where nothing was happening for days. And we didn't even see Lucy for days. So I think they did a good job in the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, I always look forward to those scenes also. Not because I want to see children dying and getting hurt, but yeah, it's always like interesting because when you read it, you're trying to imagine what's happening. Yeah. But your brain can only go so far as like what knowledge you have of what that might look like.
When you say what that might look like, the freaking girl on the freaking thing, I could not imagine it. I couldn't imagine it. And once I saw it in the movie, I'm like, I'm so stupid. That's how it looked. Yeah.
Exactly. Or like how like all the little like hiding spots would look like the vent. Like I had no idea. I'm just trying to piece it. It's like remembering a dream kind of.
Yeah.
They're trying to just piece everything together. So that's why I always look forward to it. I did think that, I don't know why, but the scene seemed a little bit more impactful to me than the previous ones, because I feel like in the trilogy, at that point, they kind of already know what to expect.
Yeah.
And they have a little bit more of the training and everything to go through. As opposed to this one, it's literally just
zero,
like grabbing kids and throwing them in there.
Yeah. I think I get what you're saying. I think in the Hunger Games movies, it was all like a big show because of what Coriolanus has done with the games in 65 years. Everything was heightened for show, for money, for views, all that stuff. And this 10th Hunger Game, it's still very visceral, very like, it's a punishment. And I think Lucky Flickerman is the first one to start making it show-like. And he's like supposed to be funny and make you like forget that you're watching children get murdered. But at the end of the day, like, now we know how effed up the story is, and we're focusing on like, while these kids are killing each other, they also stand for something. Like, there is a deeper meaning to why they're there. And while they're focusing on survival, like, every death matters. Like Coral, for instance, the redheaded girl with the short hair, who's like the leader of the pack. Like, at the end, when she's about to die, she's like, I can't have killed all these kids for nothing. Like, even her, who you're not really supposed to like side with, even she's a little bit like, you kind of feel for her. So anyways, I just thought it was really interesting, and I agree with what you're saying. It's just, all their deaths were more impactful. I was saying that because I read the book, I cried a lot during the movie. Like, I cried after almost all of the deaths. I think just watching it, I wouldn't have, because I don't know why. I just feel like I wouldn't have been tied as much. But getting a little bit more of them in the books made me really, really feel for them. Like, particularly like Marcus, Jessup, and Reaper. I told I messaged Lourdes at work when Jessup died. I was sobbing at work. And I had to turn around anytime someone walked into administration, because my face was messed up. So when that happened on screen, I was really, really sad, and I was like kind of trying to hold back any sound from coming out during the movie. I don't know if anybody else cried, but I was not.
No, I feel like... No, sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, I feel like someone who did not read it, you are right. Because those scenes were sad, but I didn't feel as connected to the individual kids as I would have had I read the book pre-hand.
Right.
Because you get to know them a lot more in the book, I'm assuming, especially from what you guys are saying.
You just have more time with them. Even though you don't get too much of their own personality, there's more to it for sure.
I would say that that's pretty consistent with what I've been hearing about how other people are kind of like, oh, okay, here are the tributes. All right. Like, they don't get any, like, really screen time before, when all of them are, like, the raping and stuff, when they're shown. You don't really get any of that as you do in the other Hunger Games movies.
Which I mean, I guess is exactly what Corio was saying. So he kind of proved his point in this movie. Because, like I said, as someone who didn't read it, I didn't know the kids. They didn't give them any time, so it wasn't as impactful. I didn't have someone to root for outside of like who I knew the main character was supposed to be, right? And that's kind of the point he makes. Like, we need to make people care about these people, because otherwise, who cares when they die?
Exactly.
Oh my god, and that reminds me, I saw someone mention that they took off the part where, what's her name, scientist lady,
Dr. Gall,
when she told Corio that they were gonna erase these Hunger Games from history, like nobody's gonna be able to rewatch these Hunger Games. And also, when he went to District 12, he noticed that nobody had any idea what happened in this latest Hunger Games because nobody watched it.
They don't even know who he is.
They don't even know who he is. They just knew Lucy Gray had gone there. And they came back. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he really changed things up when he came back to the Capitol. I was saying, side note, that I should have said this in the first question about how the movie changed things, but basically I feel like they cut a lot of stuff for time's sake, but one of those being like the tributes deaths, because we're talking about the games part of the story, and I think a lot of like they gave the death of one of the tributes to a different tribute, or they cut off a lot of like they cut off a lot of stuff, and it doesn't matter to the whole story, which is probably why they changed it, just for impact and for time's sake. But I was kind of sad to see it. Like I like the way it was in the book, even though it was a longer stretch of time. But Reaper was one that I really loved, both the book and the movie. But I thought his death was really cool in the movie with the snakes, and he's just like very silent but loud about his stance. Because he didn't kill anyone, he didn't take any food, he was just caring for the girl with that head. Like
kind of like as a rebellion.
As a rebellion. I just thought he was super cool. And he's the only one, I think, of all of them that has killed someone before the games. Yeah, I thought that was super, super cool. But
I think so that he did?
Yeah. And when right before they get dropped off into the zoo, he like threatens Koryo when they're in the like truck. And he's like, I'll kill you. And the girl's like, and he will, because he's killed a peacekeeper back in whatever district he's from.
Okay.
But then when he gets into the games, he like decides to not do anything as a rebellion to the games. And he's just taking care of the dead bodies, which his name is Reaper. And the fact that he's just like taking care of these dead bodies.
Like what?
So good.
Yeah.
Maybe too on the nose, but I loved it.
I also like that when he tore like the flag down, like there was the gasp from everybody.
Yeah.
I thought that was a good touch.
Yeah.
It's just like a sense of like any sort of like disturbance to any like what they know. Like, oh no, you can't do that.
Yeah. And then the casting choices they made for each of the tribute, or some of the tributes. So one guy had one eye, one guy had one arm. Wovi, the girl that played her, had Down syndrome. I think it was a really good thing to add. It made you care a lot for
very diverse,
in different ways.
And I feel like it wasn't too obvious. Like we're trying to make this, more inclusive.
It's literally something that could happen if you're reaping from just anybody. They don't care if you have any, health issues. It could be any kid. It
made it really human. Like, like it's like you can believe the possibility of seeing these kinds of kids. They're not all going to be models, looking like models.
Right. Which a lot of these kids do end up looking like in the Hunger Games. But also, they didn't shy away from making jokes. Like, Lucky, during Wovi's death, is like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if they dropped chocolate? And he's like, oh, it wasn't chocolate. And he was like, oh, down goes Wovi. And I was like, oh, that is an interesting joke to make.
Yeah.
Because I missed it the first time. And then I saw someone comment it on one of the TikTok videos I was watching. And I was like, oh.
Yeah. I see.
That was interesting.
I don't think I got that either.
I didn't,
So as someone who had zero expectations for the game, talking more about just the simple game itself as opposed to the players, the level of simplicity, the bombs threw in like a curve which gave people hiding spots. It added more texture to the playing ground. But like, so prior to this, were all games like an hour or two max?
Yeah, that's why Lucky thought it was going to be done. That's why he's Lucky in the movie was literally like, oh, I had dinner reservations, but this game is going longer than I thought. So I move it. He was like, oh, let me move it. Do you have anything later, like at like an hour or two from now?
Seriously.
And it's like, what the frick?
It was like almost barbaric how simple they had it, and which is sad because they call these people in the other districts like they call them like cavemen or barbaric. Or, like, they're like. They use that word to describe them, and that's the playing field they give them to like destroy each other in. It was kind of interesting to see.
It's very much like exactly what they show you, animals in a zoo. Because like if you're watching dolphins, like they'll put on dolphin shows right at the zoo or at aquariums, right? Because you want to see them in their element. And if you see these kids and from the districts as barbaric or animals, and you want to punish them, it's like putting dogs in a dog ring, or roosters in a chicken fight, right? A cockfight. It's like that, and the point is for them to slaughter each other, and that's it. So
it's only like adding more to your already opinions of who they are. Because you don't really know anything about it. All you see them is in cage and then killing each other, and that's it. And also, if you notice, like the weapons were all like rusty and just like terrible. It's kind of like just give them whatever to just kill each other.
There's a detail in the book that it was like they don't even clean the arena. They literally just drag the bodies out, and then the next game they open it back up. They don't clean the blood. They don't clean anything. They don't do anything. They just put new like the weapons back out there. The only thing different is their bodies are gone, but all the gore and stuff could still be there. It's that primitive.
And then like I noticed the stadium too was like a stadium in the sense that there's like bench seating. Are people supposed to be showing up to this thing and like watching from the seats, like
they
cheering
must,
on?
A bit ago they must have.
I mean, it was just an arena, so they probably used it as a stadium pre this time.
Yeah,
and then they just used it as the room for it. But
true. Just like very gladiator style.
Yeah.
Like
So move on to the next one. What effect did the music play in the story or the movie? Obviously reading it, because you know that the music plays some role when you read it, but then now you get to actually hear it and you get to see Rachel's performance.
In the movie, it really set a tone, and also it really just it's all like poetry. Everything, all the songs connected with the actual story. If you were listening, obviously reading it in the book, you probably were able to decipher that a little bit better because you're reading it slowly. But you didn't get the real feeling of the song until you heard it, and that's what I love about the movie. I loved all the songs. This is all so good, and the singing is so good. I think out of everything, they got a 10 out of 10 on that in the movie. Obviously, the only things that we had to say about the music was that some songs weren't put in there, and some people didn't get to sing like in the book. That's about it.
Choreo didn't get to sing. No, he's just supposed to sing the national anthem on the Gem of Panem. But also
That's right.
Tom Blythe can sing a little, so I'm kind of upset about that. He didn't get to show that. And because there's literally a 4-hour extended cut, and I feel like they probably put in some of that stuff, maybe.
Oh my god, I can't believe 4 hours. I would totally watch it.
I would watch it. I would buy it if I could.
Yeah.
But I feel like, maybe it made the cut in that one. I don't know.
Yeah.
As someone who was expecting zero singing outside of like I heard the Hanging Tree song playing.
Yeah.
I just assumed it was tying it back to the original movies. The first song they broke into had me not cringing, but just like kind of like not looking confused. Around like what's going on?
Okay, yeah.
Into a musical, like huh?
Yeah, to be fair, in the trailer they didn't give you much. They didn't make you feel like you're gonna get a lot of songs. So that makes sense.
Or about the cubby.
I do think. That being said, I do think it was done really well. Rachel has a very good voice, and even as someone who did not read the book, I could tell how much the lyrics to the songs meant to the story.
I also like had no idea what they even would have sounded like when I was. I was just listening to the audiobook, so the person was just kind of saying it.
I heard that,
and I'm just like, what? And so I tried to put it into some sort of melody. And
I tried
the way that I was doing it was like very slow, kind of like very, I don't know, like lyrical
and sad.
So to see it like, oh, that's a choice, and I thought it was cool because it was more upbeat than I thought it sounded like.
Which I think makes sense. I feel like the people from the South are very good about doing stuff like that, where they keep things light even when things are heavy. And so I think the sound that they chose to go with was the right sound.
To April's point, I was flipping back and forth when I was reading the book between physical reading and then listening to the audiobook. And the narrator of the audiobook is actually a Broadway performer. And I was like, he could have sang it.
I heard about
He wouldn't have a tune for it.
So
he was just reading it, obviously. But I thought it was funny that he is also a singer.
Yeah, they would have had to have established the tune during audiobook time.
Or just like maybe read it a little more like
Sing-songy.
Yeah, he was just reading it and it sounded like a robot. So I was like, oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
I'm like, what?
Yeah. But so same thing I said earlier about the tributes in the games, reading the lyrics. Suzanne Collins is a freaking genius.
Yeah.
She can write, dude.
Mhm.
Because reading, especially the Ballad of Lucy Gray, the one she sings in the interview about how she got to the games and how Billy Tope like betrayed her basically.
Mm-hmm.
That song, those lyrics made me cry, especially towards the end, reading them. And so hearing it was like, oh my gosh, so good.
Yeah.
But I could see how if you don't know that you're supposed to be listening to it, you won't listen. It'll just be like, oh, she's performing a song.
Yeah.
And you don't realize that it really, really matters to the plot, like most of the songs do. Like they tie really, really smartly into the storyline. So anybody who asks or I know is going to watch the movie, I tell them, make sure you're listening. And I know it's a lot to take in the first time you watch the movie. So even if I tell them, they might not be able to get all the lyrics.
Yeah.
But it's really important if you're going to watch the movie to listen to the lyrics, in my opinion.
I think one of the ones that's, to me, I'm like, I see what's happening, is when she's singing Snow's song.
Snow's, yeah.
And talking about like being pure and being innocent. And then like just a minute later or less than a minute, he's already killed someone. and I'm like that's just such a powerful kind of thing to do, where it's like
genius.
You're talking about someone being so good and he's not even like he kind of like, oh cool, that's my song, yeah,
that's my song.
But then he doesn't even like care enough about it that he's just kind of like, oh, what's the Janus doing over there, let me go check that out. And she's kind of like, hey man, like I finally did you a song and you're not even paying attention.
Yeah, exactly. But I did agree with Brittany because I knew music was going to be important, and even still when I watched the movie, when she's at the reaping and the Cubby starts singing, I was like, oh, this feels like really musically, because this isn't a musical, this movie.
Yeah,
but music is very important and they perform a lot, but the way they did it felt like it was about to be Les Mis, you know, like they just start like bursting out into song. So it was an adjustment. And then whenever she was just performing on stage, it was fine. It felt like obvious.
The stage,
right?
Yeah. It was the off-stage stuff that felt a little weird.
It was, but I get it.
Yes.
So it just took some time to get used to.
Yeah.
Like you guys were saying, I wasn't expecting. I didn't know what to expect as far as the type of music they were going to use for it. But so basically, District 12 is in the Appalachian Mountains kind of area. So they use Appalachian bluegrass for the music, which is like my shit. Like I love that type of music. Yeah. And so I was also like April, expecting a bit of a sadder tone, especially reading some of those lyrics. So again, it's important that you listen to the lyrics, you're paying attention, because otherwise that upbeat sound, the twang and the countryness of it throws you
lost
off.
In it.
And so it's interesting that they chose that, but I get it and I love it.
I was gonna say that I definitely was expecting that sound, and I think it came from the way that Lucy Gray and even Maud Ivory talked to the audience. Like I could feel what the sound was,
energy.
And so when I heard the songs, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. Also go like I felt like there's a pattern with the other songs that we've heard from the other Hunger Games, and it was like folksy, but not exactly the same, but folksy.
Folksy I got.
Yeah.
Like, so I was saying that the Taylor Swift song from the Hunger Games movies,
I
was expecting more of that sound.
Yeah.
Like the Safe and Sound song. So this one, while also folksy, was upbeat folksy. So bluegrass has a lot more instruments to it. So I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Also, fun fact, Rachel Ziegler sang all of the songs live during filming.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So, and she made people cry on set. Like, people were crying. So I was like, yeah, I get it. Like,
perfect.
Talent.
Perfect. I also wanted to mention that when it comes to the Hunger Games, we also get a lot of extra songs that go with the movie, but they're put in the credits. For example, the original Hunger Games, we got songs from Taylor Swift and the Civil Wars, and also from Lorde. And I think one of the people from the Lumineers did some of the songs. And now Olivia Rodrigo. So I love that this series keeps on delivering with the music, and
I know, right?
they didn't disappoint this time either. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then one last thing, we had said, Lourdes, I think, had said that they cut out some of the songs from the book, like a couple of them, like Corey singing. But I think it was important because obviously you had the Hanging Tree song, which is a recall from, you know, the original books.
Yeah.
But we also don't realize, if you didn't read the book, you don't realize that also the Meadow song is also Lucy Gray's.
Yeah.
She sings, that Katniss sings to Rue later. Like, that would have made such an impact.
Yeah.
So it's a shame that it got cut. Because it's a really cool callback, I think.
One of the coolest callbacks, yeah. The music just, yeah.
True. And then I was also going to say, because you guys kept saying that you expected sadder music, I think the music they chose kind of played better to what they're trying to say, because these songs eventually help people lead people to a rebellion. And the fact that it's so, like, strong and upbeat and kind of, like, there's a little bit of anger behind it, I think is a little bit even more impactful than it just being sad, because you have the sadness if you're listening to the lyrics, but you also have the, like, you're not gonna kick me down to the ground. And I think those songs they eventually listen to and in a way lead to future uprising and rebellion. So I think in a way it was a stronger impact.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree. So did you like Olivia Rodrigo's song before, after watching it? I mean, watching the movie.
I liked it. Oh, that's right. Lourdes was trying not to listen to it.
Yeah.
I liked it, but again, because I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't that sound. I wanted it to be a little bit slower, like I said, folksier. And then hers was a little more like pushing, that there was a tempo that was pushing and a little bit more aggressive while also being folksy. But because I hadn't finished the book when I listened to the song, I didn't realize the tie in the lyrics until after I had finished the movie and listened to the entire thing while sitting there. And she says snow in the lyrics. She says like all this stuff that you're like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what she's referring to in this lyric. And it makes it so much better. So I really like it.
Yeah, it was really, really good. Really good. Oh my god, imagine if she sings it in the concert, which she won't, but
maybe
that might be cool.
That'd be cool. Which all of us going crazy. Okay.
Yeah.
What were your favorite scenes or like favorite quotes
or characters
in the movie?
Obviously all the music scenes were my favorite. I'm just gonna say that. But one of my favorite characters was Bowie. She was just too cute. I mean, we didn't get a lot of her character, but she was adorable. And what else? What other quotes? Okay, I'm not gonna say a favorite quote because I didn't think about it, but I am gonna say a quote that wasn't in the movie that I was very pissed at, and it was, "The show isn't over until the Mockingjay sings," and that was a very important quote. I mean,
okay.
So I have a gripe about that.
Okay, since you said it, I'm going to go into a little bit of a monologue here because there's a breakdown that because they missed putting that in the movie, they missed a great opportunity, I think. So obviously there's like a heavy symbolic foreshadowing of Katniss's future role while saying that quote. And they don't show you how much Snow increasingly hates the existence of the Mockingjays in the movie, which is in the book. Like he literally like goes crazy in his head when he hears the Mockingjays. Or even the Coveys singing when they have harmonies that go like across each other. He's like, he can't stand it. Like he goes crazy because it sounds like the Mockingjays. Yeah, so like he doesn't understand why, but he thinks they're an abomination. And he likes the Jabberjays because he thinks they're like respectable capital tech. And obviously it's like heavy-handed symbolism. So some people I think didn't like it, but I get it. So I think that was really important. And there's like many nods to Katniss in the films. So like, I think there's a shot in the games where there's a bow and arrow left in the like makeshift cornucopia. So you're supposed to realize like, oh, it's like unclaimed because she's not ready yet.
Not there.
So it was a nod to her. There's Katniss on Lucy Gray's dress, the bodice of her dress, because it's a swamp potato flower
potato.
that's on the bodice of her dress. So there's a lot of nods to her throughout this movie for Katniss. So I'm saying, like, imagine the trigger set off in Snow 65 years later when Katniss from District 12, who becomes the face of the rebellion, is known as the Mockingjay and sings The Hanging Tree, a song that Lucy Gray wrote and not many people know except the Cubbies and Choreo. The Cubbies, not even Cubbies. Maud Ivory and Choreo know. A song that echoes a lot of their story because it says he murdered 3, meet at midnight in the hanging tree, run so we'd both be free. Those are all lyrics in the song that echo their story. And also, the last thing he ever hears from Lucy Gray, who may sing it before he shoots at her to use the Mockingjays against him, is that song. That's the last thing he hears from her before he never sees her again. Someone he loves. And then 65 years later, the Mockingjay is singing that song.
Yeah.
Like, that is such a missed opportunity. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
But anyways, that's my gripe with that.
Just imagine, like, war flashbacks in his mind.
Yeah.
Like,
but it's okay because the book has that, and
we
know it exists. And
yeah. I was gonna say the quote that I like that wasn't in the books, but they did put in the movie, and I thought was a great touch, was at the end when Choreo returns to the Capitol and he's in that amazing burgundy getup, and he's like standing in front of that statue in the Capitol.
Oh yeah.
And you hear like President Snow's voiceover.
Oh yeah.
And it says, "It's the things that we love most that destroy us." And in my opinion, it's about love being like a vulnerability that can make you susceptible to possible destruction.
Yeah.
Or mistakes. So, like, I think a lot of people are like, oh, then it's just saying that, like, he's blaming Lucy and blah, blah, blah. But I think it's talking about anybody he loves, or, like, how love makes you vulnerable. So, Sejanus loved him, and he died for it. Lucy Gray, they loved each other, and he almost killed her. Or killed her. We don't know. But, like, it's that love that makes you who he deems as weak or destroys, right? And yeah, I don't know.
And that just kind of also just reflects how the level of mistrust that he has on anyone.
Yeah.
That not even love really means anything.
And that's exactly what I was saying earlier, where I was like, I think he's so confused in his mind and so complex that he can't decide between love / manipulation, and it kind of ends up being one and the same. So it's not that he has a loss of or a lack of love for these people in his life, but he always twists it and ruins it because he wants power. So yeah.
I liked Tigress.
she was one of my
Hunter
favorites.
Schafer is just cool, and I think she did a good job. I understand her purpose there, trying to give it's kind of like she's us, right? At first we kind of see Choreo's like, okay, you're not that bad, you're not your dad, you can be better, I have hope for you, even though we know where it's going, but we still are thinking that, right? And then at the end she doesn't she's still by his side and stuff, but she just makes the comment that she makes about him looking like his dad. It's like, I see what you're saying there. It's like she knows where he's headed.
That's exactly
cool.
Because I was curious if she was gonna put that in the book, like a little bit of how Tigress comes to be who we know her as in the Hunger Games, because when you're reading the Hunger Games you don't realize they're even related, like you don't focus a lot on Tigress, and then suddenly you're like, oh, it's his cousin, and she's like ride or die for him, like she was super close and supportive and everything, like kept him alive. And so now you're even more like, how the heck
happened?
Like what happens? And Suzanne Collins doesn't really address it at all in the book. Like by the end of the book, she's just still there supporting him without any questions. But in the movie, he's like, oh, how do I look? Like, what do you think? And she's like, well, you look a lot like your dad. And we know. And he gives her this look. Like he stares at her and is like, noted. I understand
Yeah.
where you're coming from now. Like,
Yeah.
I know to
Exactly.
watch you kind of thing. Ooh, and it's sad, but it's so good that they added that.
Because in the movie, in the Hunger Games, it's just like shown that she was kicked out because they didn't like how she looked anymore.
Yeah.
However, I don't think that that's why she got kicked out. It's obviously because she just did not like him anymore. She's just not supportive of any of that.
I also think there is a storyline they didn't have time to go into, but in the book there's like a passing line about the possibility of Tigress having to have sold herself for money. Sold her body.
Yeah, you're right.
And in that Carlin Brothers video on YouTube that I was watching, they talk about Tigress's role and possibly how she came to leave her stylist position. Because we kind of know that from the book that's a possibility that Snow kind of judges her for, and he like tries to ignore it, but he's kind of like, ew. But also it's for him, literally, when he was a kid. Anyways, but around the time they broke down the math, and around the time that Tigress left, which was around the 65th game, was Finnick's games. And Finnick, as we know, is someone who was whored out. Like, he was sold by Snow to just anybody because he was a hot commodity and he was so good looking and stuff like that. So there's a possibility that Tigress was so upset with that. Her knowing that Snow knows that she had to go through that, and him being the one to do that to these tributes was something that she couldn't handle. And so she ended up leaving. But what we only know from the Hunger Games books is that, like, she wasn't pretty anymore, which I think is kind of of an answer. So I think there's more to it. True. And so I thought that was really interesting, like, possible theory.
My favorite part was the one you said. I love Tigress and that moment at the end, because, like, I was just like she nailed him on the head with that quote, and she didn't even have to know; she just knew.
Yeah,
she just knew.
She didn't have to know; she just knew. I personally, I think I might be the only person, but I loved Dr. Gall's character. I know she's the villain, or a villain, I guess, but her, especially her in the book, she poses such dark academia questions to them and, like, really makes them think. Obviously, we don't agree with a lot of her decisions and things that she does, but, like, I love the dark academia aspect of the book. It is so interesting to me, and they changed one of my favorite parts of the book, which came from her in the movie. And it's when she's stitching Corio up after he, like, escapes from the ring from saving Sejanus. And it's about, like, getting down to the natural state of mankind, because she's making him think about, okay, how did you react as soon as you realized your life was threatened? You became just like them. So knowing that about humans, how do we govern them best? Like, what do you think that's going to be, and what does that look like? I think that was super interesting to get into. And it was less impactful in the movie. But in general, I just liked not what she stood for, but what she made us think about as a character in both. Yeah.
She was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, she's an interesting character.
Yeah.
Next one is, any thoughts on the cinematography of the movie?
I think it was amazing. And I think my favorite part was all the character shots when you would, like, they had these, like, weird distorted shots of the person that was talking, and I felt it made it more intense. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the scale of this movie. I loved how much money they put into it, which I forgot the numbers. I had told Brittany the other day, because they surpassed
like 100 million or something.
They put a lot of money in, and they made, like, a lot back, like, way over already. And I believe this film is the highest rated of the four.
Damn.
Of the five, of the five films now.
Yeah.
I think it beat out Catching Fire by 1%.
No way, Jose.
Which,
Catching Fire was my favorite. That's crazy.
I don't know. I have to watch them all back to back now, but I feel like I really love this one. And while I wish it was 2 movies, because honestly, it was way too much to push into one while getting the same amount of impact, it was still really, really good. The cinematography was great. The filming on set, and, like, I want to talk about the costuming, because shit slapped, dude. Dr. Gall's, all of her outfits.
Oh yeah.
particularly the one where she's all in red and she has red like shiny gloves on and it just looks like blood.
Yes.
It's so good. And obviously I like their academy
Uniforms.
uniforms.
Yeah.
Like I will dress up like an academy student for next Halloween. Like
Yeah.
Do it.
I love it.
Please
I
do
love the
it.
costume.
One thing I just have to say, which I know you'll be trying to do, is like get all the reds right, because I've
I
seen
know.
people doing this with different reds, and I can't handle it.
It's literally what my sister was saying to me yesterday. She was like, "Ooh, we should do it," and she was like, "But it's gonna be really hard to match the red skirt with the red pants."
Yes,
Like,
and
how are you
also
gonna?
getting it the right red of the movie, because I've also seen people with like tomato red. It is not tomato red. It is not.
I honestly don't know that you can get that specific unless you're making it yourself. So
Unless you're
you might have
dyeing
to just
Just unless you're buying
You know
all
what?
white and you're dyeing it.
That actually sounds more simple to get them all right if you just dye it all together.
True. Get everything. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Different fabrics will dye differently.
Son of a bitch. Okay, so you have to get all the same fabric.
So what I have to do is find a friend who can make clothes and start in January, and then ask for the commission to be done by October. Anyways, that'll be fun.
I do like the sets. The sets are really cool. And I saw a video of like somebody visiting all the sets, and it's exactly the same. It's like they didn't really have to like use CGI or it's just amazing.
Yeah.
I like the post-war kind of look to it.
Yes.
Also mixed with like very retro vibes.
Love the retro vibes.
Yeah.
I think the retro vibes lent to the not having to use CGI, which made it just look super real and super like simple and good.
So well done.
Yeah.
Yes.
I do like the costuming as well. I know the book they all pointed out like about the red gloves being she's got blood on her hands, and I'm like, of course, like why didn't I see that? But I did notice that her outfit looked like she had dipped it in blood. One was like a little ombre kind of book. I really liked all of their outfits. I know people were saying how his outfits, even though he's supposed to be poor, and Tigress is trying to find ways to make him still look stylish, that they could have still made him like he kind of still blended in with everybody else. So they kind of they had room to make him look a little bit more outdated, because that's supposed to be his father's clothing, which would be years back. And they kind of did it in the same way. Like the only thing that we get about him being so poor is Dean saying like, "Oh, your shoes look a little bit too tight." Yet we didn't see the shoes, and it could have been like a little bit something. Somebody says this about like him kind of walking a little bit funny, or like taking them off, and his toes are like, I don't know, bloody or whatever, bruised, I don't know. Just to drive the point how broke his family is.
Yeah, I was saying that there are so many things they missed out on doing, but I think, like I said again, it's about the time. And when you're editing down, seconds count. Yeah. And so they could not put so much of the literally some of these things would take like seconds to do, or a minute at most, not even. Like the scene, like if he were to take off his shoes and kind of like flex a little bit or whatever, so that you can see like, oh, he's uncomfortable, whatever it is. Like ended up probably not being able to fit in because they squished it into one movie. But anyways, his fits were amazing still. The burgundy fit at the end, I'm just like,
so good.
And then I just want to say Viola Davis's acting, I freaking love her in general. She's so good in every movie she's in, but she was funny but also scary, but also like really interesting. Whenever she would sing/chant at him was hilarious, and her laughter, her crazy laugh, so good.
So good.
Scary. I do like that they did the whole thing about it being divided into 3 parts, so like 3 acts. Because it helped, like, okay, I know now what's going on, and you get to see a little bit of him kind of breaking in each act of like this is kind of maybe that turning point, and then he's forced to now kill or to defend himself. That's one thing. And then now Lucy Gray at the end. So I did like that they did that, not just one running kind of movie.
Mm-hmm.
The next one, there are obviously things that needed to be cut from the story. For example, maybe we can talk about how characters that were cut from the story.
Yeah.
I know that Casey has something to say about that.
Well, there's like a few. So Clemmy, the Asian girl in the movie, if you haven't read the book,
Yeah.
played not a bigger, impactful role in the story, but she was actually there the whole time.
Yeah.
So she got bit by the snake, and then there's this whole thing where Koryo has to visit her, and she's literally like, her eyes are all yellow. She's growing scales.
Yeah.
She's visibly sick, and it's supposed to, I think, maybe show how Dr. Gall is using her as an experiment. And then she does get better, so she comes back to the games to watch as a mentor, but she's like shedding like a snake, but she's quote unquote better. And then she's Reaper's mentor in the games, and so it's obviously Reaper and Lucy Gray at the very end of the games. And Koryo says to her, like, "I'm glad it's me and you at the end." To Clemmy. And those things are not important to the story, so I get why if maybe it was in the 4-hour cut, but didn't make it into the final, because why does that matter?
Yeah.
But she was cut. Big thing that I think they shouldn't have taken out so much of was Ma Plinth, so Sejanus's mom. I think she's a really interesting, like, loving character that like will explain Sejanus a little bit more, and also how Koryo manipulates her and hates on her and thinks it's like disgusting, but also acts like he loves them and he's so nice to them, and how he ends up being the person who takes on that son role for them when Sejanus dies. He gets their money. He's crazy. And so to see that is just yet another thing. We could have seen more of his character and how bad he can be and how bad he was. But we got that manipulation taken out for time's sake. I would have liked to have
seen that on screen.
She's so sweet.
Yeah.
But Mom Plinth, she makes them food and sends it to them
the whole time.
And he's like, oh, like, she's so tacky.
He's so tacky. I don't like it. Basically, he's just a jealous. He's a jealous bitch. He doesn't have.
His husband should have fed him to that starving man in the winter when the movie first started. Saved us all the misery. So
he was a baby.
She should have fed him straight to that man. Sold him for a couple bucks.
With Clemmy, I want to mention that, not seeing her we haven't seen her going through all that shit because of what Dr. Gall did to her. Basically, it was telling us that even in the capital, you're not safe. And I think that was my favorite part of reading and watching this is now we got that insight to the capital. Now we know how it actually is. It's not this like everyone is in high society doing so great. Even in the capital, you're not safe, and that freaked me out.
It's basically like keep your mouth shut and follow orders.
Yeah,
which is how you get characters like Effie Trinket, who are very sensitive and understand where these kids are coming from, and she feels bad, and she obviously has a good heart, but she likes her lifestyle, and I totally get that. I am probably the most not like you guys in that I agree with a lot of the things that are brought up in the capital, and I see a lot of Koryo's points and decisions he makes. Not all of them. I don't love how he goes about it, but I get what he says in his inner monologue sometimes. But it's like that where you're like, I'm so used to the way I was raised and this is all I know. I'm used to a certain lifestyle, and so for people like Effie who have a good heart, or Tigress, they cannot go and be the movers and shakers of a movement, right? So that's why Tigress was so hoping that would be Koryo. She basically raised him and wanted him. She saw the good in him, how smart he was, and he ended up obviously being terrible. But it's people like that make it really interesting. I was going to say, Maud Ivory Erasure, bad move. So if you're watching the movie, she was in the Covey. She was the blonde girl that had a lot of charm, and she there's a theory / I think it's pretty obvious that she is probably Katniss's paternal grandmother. In the books, because in this book, Maud Ivory has a special talent of being able to memorize songs like from the first time she hears it. And songs like The Hanging Tree that Lucy Gray didn't get to perform yet, or at least we didn't get to see her perform.
Yeah.
She was still working on it. Maud Ivory would have heard. And how does Katniss know the song but not many other people? Her dad knew the song because he would sing it all the time, and her mom would be like, singing's forbidden, you shouldn't sing that, and stuff like that. And Katniss takes on that mantle. So I think that was important for us to see more of Maud Ivory.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't think only Katniss knew that song, though. I think all the working people knew that song because it was a song that they would sing, I think, in the mines. I'm not exactly sure, but it was like a working, like it was like a song they knew it, like in the DL. So
Like
that's how Katniss.
But why?
Because obviously
How?
I know. I think Maud Ivory might have sung it at some point with the covey in the, you know, and it became a work, like it became their song. Yeah.
But also the Meadow song too.
The Meadow
songs like
song,
that are not a working song, right?
Yeah.
So if it's like a lullaby song, I just feel like that theory was really cool.
Yeah.
And because of the Katniss, like it was only the covey that called the swamp potato Katniss. At least I think so. It made it sound like in the book that they would call the swamp potato Katniss, or Lucy Gray did, or whatever. And so maybe Maud Ivory was like, Katniss, hey, Katniss, and the parents were like, yeah, Katniss. I don't know. I think that's a really cool theory to tie into and like make it make sense.
Yeah, I would like that to be true.
Yeah.
I think that was the end of my questions, unless you have anything else that you wanted to talk about.
Do you guys think that Lucy Gray actually dies? I know it's supposed to be open-ended, but like, what is your theory?
I would love to believe that
how is it different from the movie and book?
I would love to believe that she got away and somehow contributed to District 13, but I don't
know. Honestly, I don't even know. Maybe she dies. I don't know. It's a little bit more confusing now seeing the movie because in the movie, you get that little scene of like her running past, and I don't know if that's even said in the book or like it's kind of just like more like where the hell did she go? Where is she? You know?
Yeah.
The book makes it much more confusing. Like Suzanne Collins really didn't want you to know.
Yeah.
Like she wanted you to keep guessing and not really be sure by the end of it. Whereas the movie, I think they really tried to make it like him kind of go crazy when he's like screaming, yelling, and the birds are flying and and also that whole scene, I think they made it seem much more intentional that Lucy Gray was like suspicious of him, whereas in the book it was not like that at all.
Yeah.
To me, like it felt like too quick of a flip. Like she wasn't suspicious, and all of a sudden he's hunting her. Whereas in the movie she's like, you only killed 2 people. What do you mean you killed 3? And don't lie to me. Like that was so not in the book. And so then by the time that she like looks at him and is like, well, I'm not sugar, and then she goes off and then he gets suspicious and they're like basically I think the scene was much more straightforward, but also I saw a theory that in the actual scene she's wearing a white dress, but when he shoots at her she's wearing her rainbow skirt. Like when you see her through the trees. So then it's supposed to be like, oh well, when he got bitten,
he was
like start hallucinating.
Oh, okay.
And so now we don't know.
You're
Even
right.
more so, we don't know.
Yeah. I remember reading in the book that he was like, he was kind of like all over the place because he got bit. So, and I remember reading from the book, I'm like, wait a minute, but we don't know what actually happened because he was out of it. So,
he was out of it.
I want to believe
and also,
he survived.
In the movie, like, they made the snake part so obvious.
Yeah.
Like, the snake is under the scarf, but in the book, the scarf's just caught on a tree branch, and the snake comes, like, when he goes to grab it, a snake comes and bites him from the tree. So that can be read as, like, it could totally not have been intentional by Lucy Gray.
Right.
But in the movie, it looks so like
intentional.
a trap.
Yeah, it's like, oh, of course she did this to me.
Yeah. So all that was very interesting. But we never get an answer, which
I'm okay with. I like open-ended.
Though a lot of people theorize that President Coin could be Lucy Gray, and I don't like that theory. But there's a whole thing about that too.
Coin?
What?
Yeah.
Nah.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't
Isn't
like it
Coin
either, but
white?
there's videos about that.
For one, Coin is white.
No.
Well, that's
their races.
That's not-
Their races are ambiguous in the
Yeah.
books.
Yeah.
But Coin does have. I mean, she has gray hair, but that doesn't tell us anything. She's old.
it
I
means
don't
nothing.
like that, but
But no.
Oh, some people are like, oh, maybe Lucy survives and she just goes to live in quiet, or maybe she goes back to 12 and she's possibly Greasy Say, or maybe she's in 13 and she's actually President Coin. You don't know.
I'm down
Who
for
knows?
it to be
Yeah.
alive. They don't show a body, so
Yeah,
No
that's what I
body.
love. Yeah.
No
Nobody
body,
knows.
problem.
So he didn't kill her. Yeah.
So everyone, read the dang book if
Read
you
it.
haven't. Especially if you love the original Hunger Games trilogy, you definitely shouldn't sleep on this book, which is hilarious for me to say because when it came out, I'm like, I'm not
Oh my
gonna
God.
read that book.
Mhm.
That book is everyone's saying is terrible, which is like, okay, never trust people. Only trust
Nope.
yourself
Only trust us also.
and us. And definitely go watch the movie after you read the book because
Yeah. Or
go hand in hand. I
the
mean,
other
Or vice
way
versa.
around,
or
like
the
Brittany.
other way, which Brittany will be doing soonish.
In March. Mhm.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it. We're all done.
Yay!
Thank you for
Did it.
joining us and giving us your opinions. And can't wait for the next Hunger Games. Which, I don't know when that will be.
When is that gonna
Just
happen?
binge the movies.
Yeah. You know what? I really hope she writes another book in this world, but I feel like
Yeah.
the odds are not in our favor.
Are not in our favor. I saw something that said that people keep bugging her about writing more.
Yeah.
And you know the line that Lucy Gray says when Corio's like, you have to sing to make people like you or else they're not going to
Yeah.
give you stuff.
Mm-hmm.
She says, I only sing when I have something to say.
Ooh.
And Suzanne Collins says actually the same thing. She's like, I
Yeah.
only write when I have something that I need to
Yeah.
say. And she, right before she
Quality.
wrote this book,
Mhm.
she was really interested in humankind and what makes them tick and like capitalism and like all this stuff. She has an interview about it. I can't remember exactly what she says,
Mhm.
but
yeah.
she was like, I'm really interested in this facet and who is going to give me that vehicle? Snow. And so she was like, I have to write this story.
About
And
human
I thought that was
nature.
really interesting. Human nature.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like what's going to make them, what is their drive, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I thought that was super interesting. So as much as I want her to write more in the universe, I get where she's coming from. And I actually think that it helps us because she gives such good shit.
Yes,
Like,
that's when
it
we get
produces
quality. Mhm.
Quality over quantity, which we've seen track records of some authors
opposite.
who write a lot, and
Yeah.
somewhere along the way, which we noticed this year, the books are not getting better.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm so glad that Suzanne Collins understands, and she's doing it. She's doing it. Yeah. Okay then.
Okay.
Thanks
See
for
ya.
having us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Good to coming.
Yeah,
Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, we're done.
Okay, let me stop. Oink.
Do you guys think you would survive in a Hunger Games?
No.
Why did you
No.
ask that during the cat? Just kidding.
Thought about it now.
No, I
Um,
would not.
I would like to think that I can survive it by evading, but I don't know. And maybe once I'm in there, I might get into it. I can totally.
I might get into the killing. I don't know.
Once it's die or survive or die.
But
Kill
when
or
it
I don't think I
comes-
can do it. I'd be like PETA.
What-
You
yeah.
just
I'd be hiding.
Paint yourself like
Yeah.
the mud and
Yeah.
the bark.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah. Defense, offense, defense,
Offense.
offense.
No, your
Offense.
Defense, offense,
Defense.
defense.
Defense is your defending.
Yeah. And offense is your offending. Yeah, I like to believe that I can just like hide in a tree, but you know what happens when Katniss hides in a tree?
Yeah.
It's true. They try to kill her.
You get
You get corralled.
corralled. Yeah.
That's true. That's the only bad thing about hiding. Once they figure out your hiding spot, you're stuck.
You just gotta find some tracker jackers.
Ugh.
Or some poison berries.
Boys and
Well,
berries.
yeah, because it's not just about like hiding from the players, but the game makers
The
too.
game
Like watching you.
makers.
Yeah.
And they just send shit to scare you out, and then you have to go.
Mhm.
That's
So,
true
yeah.
because even
Evasion is
when-
not a tactic.
True. When Katniss tried running and hiding, they started sending fireballs her way, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's like the clock one. That one's
Mhm.
genius.
So good.
Yeah.
True.
Freaking love that.
That's intense, man. I would die so fucking fast. It's not even funny. I think I'd rather die fast. I don't want to survive that trauma.
I know.
Dial clock.
That's what we say about apocalypses, but I also want to. I actually want to. I would like to know if I can be successful. I would try.
You would want to try for a little and see, and then if you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god, I'm gonna die," then you just kill yourself.
Yeah, I feel like if one day I'm just like I'm done. I'm done.
I don't think I'd so easily keel over and die as I would imagine or say when it comes to
Mhm.
like apocalypse and stuff. Unless the fates just have it in store.
Yeah.
You muted yourself.
You muted yourself.
You know?
No, I don't.
We don't know.
What do you mean?
You muted yourself, so we didn't hear you.
Oh no, I didn't mute myself. My mom tried calling me. I didn't realize.
Oh.
But I said as much as I wouldn't, I wouldn't be running into death's arms.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, god damn it, I don't want to deal with this bullshit.
Yeah.
No.
You know.
I have no energy for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I
guess
mean, during the training, I definitely would probably be like, I'm in this situation. I best learn. I want to know if it's canon, because if it's not, I don't really care.
Right. But I just love the fact that it all has to do with snow.
Oh, okay.
All of it.
Also,
at some point he becomes an old ugly man, Casey. I just want you to know that.
I don't care about that. I'm just saying I think it's interesting that he
But at
turned
what
this
point?
primitive thing into a spectacle.
An old ugly
Yeah.
man
Yeah.
who every time he coughs, he
Blood.
uses blood.
He's supposed to have like ulcers, right? In his
Blood.
mouth or
Mhm.
Yeah,
something.
because he takes
Ew.
poison.
Poison. So cool.
Yeah.
I mean, gross, but like the layers are cool.
I like Brittany. He becomes an old man. You
Or-
do know that.
As do we all.
Know that.
But that's okay.
I watched a video where like you know how like they're ranking, like people rank like on like
Oh, yeah.
hotness and stuff,
Yeah.
and it was like Coriolanus, and he's like, "Oh, number 1," and then the
Yeah.
next character was President Snow. It's like all the way down.
Yeah. That's that's funny. He rose from the ashes and became
Rose.
something
Rose.
totally Rose.
Is he a phoenix?
Sure. Old
What are
white
you eating?
man.
Brownie?
What is it? A nugget?
Dark chocolate almond pretzel nugget.
Oh, from Trader Joe's.
Nugget?
Dude,
Is it good?
these things are fucking legit.
So whose house?
Pretzel.
Mine.
Pretzel?
Mm-hmm.
Nugget?
Dark chocolate covered pretzel nugget filled with almond butter.
What's
So
covered in-
imagine the peanut
what's-
butter pretzels. right? Now change it for almond butter instead of peanut butter. Now cover the whole thing in chocolate. That's what she's eating.
Nope.
They're bomb, man.
Decadent.
Well, that's good.
Well, that's good. I'm happy for you.
I'm happy for you.
Huh?
Reba?
Reba?
What's Reba doing there?
A single mom
She's
who works two
Works two
jobs.
jobs.
Yeah.
Who loves her
Kids
kids
and
and
never
never
stops.
stops.
Gentle hand to the
Oh.
heart of a fighter.
I'm a
Survivor. Oh, is that for your child?
Yeah.
I know
I can
this
see
because...
my face in the reflection of the box.
Okay. Just let us know.
Let us know.
Everything's coming up snow.
Snowman's on top.
Snowman's on
No,
top.
it's a big fat liar.
Take a
And
giant piss in that snow.
he what?
Yellow
I know
snow.
what Casey wants for Christmas. She wants a little snowman.
Little snowman.
He wants a snowman.
A snow action figure.
Oh my god, I don't think they'll ever do that.
I don't know, man.
It
They
doesn't
will.
seem like who's gonna buy that?
Casey.
No, I mean like okay, we are at the table of the marketing people.
Yes.
And they're like, let's make some snow action figures. Wait. Action
The
figures
time is literally now.
are
to
usually
make
The
for
time is now. Yeah.
the
They're not
No!
selling snow. They're selling Tom Blythe.
Yeah.
And that's just that.
thing
The
is
TikTok
they
you sent me, Lourdes, he's the white boyfriend of the month.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
White
they gotta
boyfriend of the
capitalize
month.
on it.
But they don't capitalize on random fandom girls. They
You
just
have a
capitalize.
Timothy Chalamet.
Yes, but that
But he's not a bad guy.
is something like grown nerdy men would buy.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's
Well, what about
dude.
grown nerdy girls?
Hey, that's what I'm trying to
Thirsty
say.
girls.
They don't cater to the nerdy thirsty girls.
They could. And they should because money. If they were
Yeah.
smart, they would.
They're not
They
smart. They're all
would.
morons.
I'm gonna commission a holographic photo for Casey where one way you look at it is Tom Blythe, the other way
Yeah,
you look
no,
at it is Donald
Donald
Sutherland.
I'd still want it.
Wait, who's Donald Sutherland?
President Snow actor.
Oh.
Kiefer Sutherland's dad.
Yeah.
Oh my
You know him.
god, you mean one of those lenticulars?
Lenticulars. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lenticular?
Uh-huh.
Wait, you can
Yeah.
3D
The
print
shifting.
one, Lourdes?
Oh yeah.
You can do that, Lourdes?
What?
An
The-
action figure?
The abilities I have with a 3D printer are that of a child.
Oh.
To start with the head.
To start with the head. I don't have a good
Good 3D print Casey a life size Tom Blythe.
Oh,
Dang.
life size?
you know how
Yeah,
many
life size.
hours?
That's a lot of
That's a lot of
filming.
hours. That's a lot of PLA.
ELA.
Prime.
We can just
Life.
print one.
Lasagna.
With the-
action.
Prime lasagna.
You can just what, April?
print one at work.
Just make a cardboard cutout instead. I don't need a 3D
There you
printer, I
go.
guess. I guess.
Just wrap a
Yeah.
pillow around it, and then just so that way you can go.
Again.
Get one of those body pillows and then just like
Exactly.
stitch his face into
So
a
what you
towel.
can do is just print out a pillowcase.
Mhm.
Oh, I hate those.
Body pillow.
Mm.
Hey, now
Like,
you guys have an extra
scare
face for the
me.
cake you're gonna make me next year for my birthday.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Who's gonna make this cake?
Just kidding.
Love her to kick
Brittany.
I could print out the pictures and cut
Yeah.
them, but
them on
I'm
toothpick.
not a baker.
I can bake 2 cakes and I can make frosting. Will it look good when I slap it together? I don't know.
I can help you with the frosting. I mean, I don't know how to frost anything, but I think I can figure it out.
The only thing you need to do is make sure the cake's cool and you're fine.
Yeah.
I learned that
Make
from
the
the
cake
baking
cool,
show.
And you have to use like a thick buttercream.
Thick
None of that
buttercream.
store-bought can shit.
Buttercream.
We always forget to mention our costumes.
Oh yeah.
Remember when we were talking about costumes, you could have talked about yours.
Yeah, but every time we always forget. Oh well.
You put so much effort, and for what?
Yeah.
For what?
I mean,
I even
the people
dyed
who
my
know
hair.
will know.
I cut my hair, I dyed it.
You cut your hair.
Yeah, you were
dyed it.
styling.
I took my hatchet out.
Whoa. Murder.
Murder.
What murder?
What murder?
What murder?
What murder?
Oh, Lourdes,
wait, no,
you're
she's
still
reading.
recording.
What? Holy shit. No, it's because I can't. Oh, yeah, okay.